The holidays are supposed to feel joyful, connected, surrounded by those that you love and care about the most, right? But something that is not always talked about is how heavy it can feel when you're stretched thin between giving to everyone else and also giving to yourself. Welcome back, everyone, to the Thrive Club Co. podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Jade, and today for episode 47, because as of now, with the holidays approaching, we are quite literally just around the corner from Thanksgiving, and a topic that feels very timely and very, very important as we are approaching this season. It's something that can feel both beautiful and very heavy at the same time, balancing family, friendships, and yourself, which on a day-to-day basis, without the holidays, that can alone be a bit of a challenge, right? But when you throw the holidays into the mix, there's something about it that makes it feel even more difficult and challenging. And maybe part of that's because the expectation of it to be always joyful, always happy, maybe that is what really gets to us and makes it feel even that much harder. Because in a time that is supposed to be all about joy, it's hard to not acknowledge when you're feeling very stretched thin as well. Because while this season can very well bring joy and celebration, it can equally bring us stress and overwhelm. It is a time when boundaries are tested the most. Oh, yes, they are. So that's what we're diving into today. And I want to share what I have learned over the years about setting boundaries during the holidays specifically. And not from a place of avoidance, but really from a place of protecting peace and how that has completely shaped how I show up differently in my relationships today. So, a few years ago, a book that has genuinely shifted how I see just the word boundaries alone is by Nedra Tawwab, Set Boundaries, Find Peace. And oh my gosh, just a precursor, it seems like a lot of the times when I buy books, I have an expectation kind of what they're going to be about. And then when I read them, I realize, oh, well, there must have been a different reason why I needed to read this book because it helped in a completely different way than I had expected. It's pretty straightforward for this: set boundaries, find peace, right, in the title. But I found so much more. And it was so eye opening because truly a couple years back when I first picked up this book, I had no idea what a boundary was. Of course, I had heard of it before, but I really didn't know what it meant and how it applied to me and my life and my relationships with others, which simultaneously, that also meant that I had no boundaries for myself and for other people as well. So that book alone was so eye opening, and I highly recommend it to anyone just trying to get a good general scope of what a boundary is for yourselves, for your partnerships, friendships, relationships, family, at work, anything in your life. That is an incredible stepping stone. And it was that book mixed with conversations in therapy about the topics of setting boundaries. Because at that point in my life, I was in my former relationship, because truly I found that book secretly so that I could find a way to have boundaries in my relationship with my ex partner where there just was none. And I needed a way to protect myself and protect my peace and learn how to do that for others as well. And what I found was, and one of the biggest revelations that I took from that book was boundaries are all encompassing beyond just the self, but in all forms of relationships with other people, other humans, that it's applicable in all relationships with other people, and that loving your people does not mean overextending and burning yourself out. That there might be guilt feelings that come from it, but learning how to work through that and what a boundary is and what a boundary is not. Because simply put, a boundary is designed to protect you mentally, to protect you physically, to protect you emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. That's what a boundary is meant to do. And oftentimes it can be seen as just saying no to this and no to that, and a boundary is a negative no. And it really couldn't be further from the truth. It's choosing what brings you peace and choosing how to protect yourself so that you can show up for others and for yourself as your best self. That's kind of it in a nutshell. And there's so much more depth that clearly could be going into it. But when relating that to the holidays and reading that book, I had learned so much more about boundaries with my family. And that was a very sensitive time in my life with my family in particular. There are large periods of time with no contact, and understanding what a boundary was so that one day we could heal progressively through it and have boundaries in place to have loving, healthy relationships with my family members. And for me, something that looked like that was setting time limits on family visits. Maybe instead of spending 5, 7, 10 days with your family, it could look more like spending 2 or 3 nights with them so that you're not feeling drained or overstimulated or honestly disconnected, which defeats the whole purpose of togetherness is to feel connected, right? Or it can also look something like choosing to stay at a hotel or somewhere else other than the household that everyone else is in. And it's not because you don't want to spend time with them, it's because you need a place to come back to fully recharge your batteries so you can show up as your best self around everyone. And something changed so dramatically is that there was this ability to be fully present and an improvement of the relationships. Boundaries didn't distance me from the people that I loved eventually. It made it so that I could show up grounded and rested and more genuinely present. And over time, that's what carries relationships through. And what a boundary really is, it's that self awareness in action. And I think something else that is not talked about enough is how guilt can show up when we start honoring our limits, right? It's this, even if we honor a limitation that we have or a boundary, oh my gosh, can it feel so guilty that you're implementing it, even though it's what's keeping you protected, keeping you safe. You're not being mean or aggressive to another person. You're simply having a boundary that you're firm on in place. And it can feel very guilty. But a key takeaway that I learned from that book, from therapy regarding boundaries, is that if someone doesn't respect your boundary, it's probably because there's an issue revolving the respect towards you. Keeping your boundaries firm in place, those who respect you will show up and respect them. And it might take some time and it might take a lot of reminders, but that consistency builds and that respect shows up when you are consistent with it. There's that internal dialogue of, will they be upset? Am I being distant? But boundaries are never rejection, they're communication. They say, I value this relationship enough to protect how I show up in it. And I value myself enough to protect myself as well. And from a neuroscience perspective, this all ties together with something called the polyvagal theory. Simply put, that's the science of how our nervous system regulates connection. When we're calm, our body is in what's called the ventral vagal state. This is the part of the nervous system that allows for openness and compassion, safety in relationships. But when we start to overextend ourselves, ignore our limits, push past them in harmful ways, or people please to exhaustion, our body starts slipping into sympathetic mode, fight or flight, or even dorsal vagal mode, which is shut down or withdrawal. And that's why sometimes we can see ourselves after long, overstimulating family gatherings. You might feel anxious or snappy or short or emotionally numb, even. And that's because your nervous system literally ran out of its capacity. So setting boundaries is not selfish, it is regulation. And a key takeaway that I learned, having healthy boundaries is one of the healthy key foundation elements of being a healthy adult. Setting boundaries is the process of keeping your nervous system in a state where it can actually connect with itself and with others. And what's fascinating is that your nervous system can't really tell the difference between emotional overwhelm and physical overstimulation. Both are just pulling you out of regulation. And that's why something as simple as silence or movement, going for a short walk outside to get away from the overstimulating environment, can bring you back into that ventral vagal state where connection feels safe again. So that 2 to 3 night limit that I mentioned, that's you protecting your ability to stay in the zone where connection actually happens. So as part of our rewire practice and challenge, here's something that you can do as we are approaching the holiday season. Take inventory of your holiday capacity. Ask yourself honestly, without fear or guilt of hurting someone else's feelings, just ask yourself honestly, how long can I stay somewhere and still feel like myself? What routines, habits, or grounding moments help you feel restored while you're there? That's key. For example, maybe you need 30 minutes of quiet time in the morning. before family gatherings to have your own time for the day. Maybe you go on solo walks around the block. Maybe you keep a journal with you, write some notes in your phone, or just step outside for a few deep breaths. And these are not indulgences, my friends. These are regulation tools that are necessary. They keep your nervous system balanced so that your heart can stay open. And here's something else that I have learned through very much trial and error. If you don't pre-decide your boundaries, your nervous system will decide for you later in the forms of exhaustion, irritation, or disconnection. So before you get to that step of a point of no return, take control and pre-decide your boundaries so that your body is not deciding them for you. Because boundaries are how we stay in our ventral vagal states, where we can still access love and empathy, even when things get busy around us. So as you take inventory for your holiday capacity, also create a peace plan for yourself. Quite literally keeping your own peace for yourself. It's a short list of things that help you stay regulated that you can directly access and point to and know what to do, even when it starts getting chaotic around you. That could be something like morning time for yourself before social plans, stepping outside for 5 minutes when you feel overstimulated, taking your own car to an event so that you can leave when you need to or feel the freedom to leave when you need to, or scheduling a day of rest after a holiday visit, not just before. And these things might seem really small, like stepping outside and taking a few deep breaths, but what they're actually doing are huge things for yourself and making a big difference because they're signaling safety to your brain. And if guilt starts to creep in, which it likely will, remind yourself that guilt isn't proof that you're doing something wrong. It's just a sign that you're doing something new. And that is the rewire. Catching the old story that says, I'm selfish, and replacing it with the truth of, I'm showing up sustainably. And one thing that is for certain, it's that boundaries and love can absolutely coexist with one another. It's actually how healthy relationships are, with healthy boundaries that are respected towards one another. In fact, they depend on each other because healthy connection is not about constant access. It's about consistent authenticity. And when we're regulated and clear and grounded on what we actually need, we show up as our better selves, better friends, better partners, better siblings, better sons, daughters, as better humans. And since it's the holidays, I think it's important to remember gratitude and boundaries can go hand in hand. We can be thankful and be intentional. We can love people and still listen to our capacity. So this holiday season, check in with yourself before you check off another to-do list. Ask what version of you wants to show up and what that version needs in order to thrive. And thank you so much again, everyone, listening in to this week's episode of the Thrive Club Co podcast. Thank you so much for being a part of the club and this community here. Make sure that you're subscribed. Leave a comment, question, or what you want to see in the next episode down below in the comments. I'm your host, Jordan, and I'll catch you in the next one.